Hello, and welcome back to another episode of The Golden Seams. I'm Gabe, and I'm here with Michelle. Today, we're going to be continuing our story, The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse by Charlie Mackesy.
Jumping back in here and continuing on, the boy and the mole, they're near this water, this river. The boy tells the mole to be careful not to fall in, and then the mole does exactly that. The mole's being swept under with the current. Suddenly, the fox jumps in and rescues the mole and gently brings the mole back to dry land. I couldn't help but think about falling into the current is literally life.
Yeah,
And I know that Charlie Mackesy is saying that the wild is life. This is probably one aspect of the wild. Life is literally when you're in it, you get immersed in the current and you get swept away. And sometimes you can be possibly taken under. Worst case scenario, you drown. Again, an interesting parallel with life, but also so gentle and kind the way he relays it in the story. He goes on with the fox rescuing the mole, took me back from when I was a kid, where that girl came forward. And because she knew how to be a girl, not a tomboy, she helped me.
Hmm.
It was such a precious act of kindness, and the previous act of kindness was reciprocated back. This is so true in life. If you can let yourself receive kindness and you can let yourself give kindness, it can show up and save you when you're in the midst of the current and being swept under.
absolutely. I think it's this trusting the other as the universe, the kindness that comes from that place. A certain like surrender, I guess, too. Like this book keeps bringing back this theme of vulnerability, softness. He said it so well, like the courage that it takes to stay in that place. But the miracles do come.
Picking it up where the mole and the fox and the boy, they're all now friends. The boy says, "So much beauty we need to look after," as they're sort of looking at the night sky. They go on, they're walking through the snow. It goes on to say, "Being kind to yourself is one of the greatest kindnesses," said the mole.
Mm.
I thought, oh, wow, how difficult this is. This is such a challenging thing to do in so many ways. Again, Charlie Mackesy and his genius just says it very, very simply. Being kind to yourself is one of the greatest kindnesses. I think it is very challenging to be kind to yourself. One,
Oh
because
my
we get in
God.
these very frantic states of, I got to be here, I got to do this, I got to that, I got to that. So you're on deadlines. I also think it's important to sort of reflect on why it's important. Kindness is more of a form, at least to me, when you're doing it and relating it to yourself, it's a form of self compassion. I think the basis on this is really about treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding that you would offer to a close friend or someone that you love. And we say that, I know we've all heard it, I'm sure most people have, and yet it doesn't kick in.
No, it's tricky. And it, for me, it's oftentimes hidden underneath the shame or fear of sharing that maybe I'm overwhelmed or under rested or not well prepared for the things that I'm encountering and dealing with. And the shame and fear prioritizes kindness to other over kindness to myself. And it's not like the I have to not be kind to somebody to be kind to myself, but for some reason it became a habit of mine for a long time to not even acknowledge or have this baseline, but so much it goes back to that outside fixation thing of if I'm getting the reflections back outside of me, I must be doing okay. And it's so easy to overlook that space inside of us where we might be experiencing metaphorical or physical hunger or,
Yeah,
anxiety, fear.
it's so true. And I think it's almost like we don't even recognize that our own needs until it's so far past, we don't even recognize ourselves sometimes. I think that that's the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And I think another key thing in showing self-compassion is forgiving yourself. And I think that's really, really challenging to do. If you think that you've made a mistake,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. One of the ways, at least for me in my experience, where I would think, oh, if I'm being kind to myself, it's I'm going to go get myself a coffee. It's not the actual getting the coffee or getting the massage or getting the manicure or those things. I found that those didn't really, it was that actually that I took the moment to sit down and have the coffee
Yeah.
and
That's
just
yeah,
settle, settle, settle. Okay. I had to have the coffee to give myself permission. I had to have somebody sitting there doing the manicure to give myself permission to relax. I was just go, 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 go. And when you're that exhausted and you're that pushed, you get disconnected from yourself. At least I did.
total. And it reminds me of what you said about the compass. Like when the needs and current experience are not being prioritized or valued in our own existence, it's almost like covering the compass completely. Like the insights and the wisdom that's coming from our unconscious or our body or feelings is completely dismissed for this mental, very curated, confusing life.
You start burying your emotions. You start ignoring them because you've got the deadlines or you have the mask that you have to wear because you're at the place to do the thing, to be the what. That's again, we get immersed in it.
And it's all the ways that I don't think it's intentional or created to be this way, but I think we learn to be inauthentic out of the fear that our authentic self is not good enough for surviving this reality we're sharing, or all of the the fears that linger when we don't face them.
It's
This
completely it.
The fear of vulnerability is a tricky one to acknowledge because there are times and there are places where like you might be face to face with the fox in the trap. And when you're looking and talking to them, they might be saying scary things. This book really reminded me that those moments are no reason to choose otherwise. Kindness is always the answer.
I think so. And also in those moments to remember that really is about them.
Yes.
It's not about you.
Yeah, it's their pain. They're coping the best that they can. And sometimes I've been the fox. Oftentimes.
I'm not even going to say how many times I've been the fox. So another thing that I want to acknowledge here on showing kindness to yourself is the way you talk to yourself, the things you think. It has such a significant impact on your self-esteem and your emotional state, but it also has a huge impact on what you will allow in your life. I want to draw awareness to that, not jumping to solutions here now, but just to say, being one of the best ways that you can show kindness to yourself is to simply not continue with the negative thoughts. Find something more constructive, something that just feels slightly better, whatever
I
that is.
totally. It's like baby steps, focusing on or meditating on or however. Like I think it's a reality that we can't help but bring into fruition what we focus on. Like
Yeah.
we're creative beings, whether we like it or not here. And it's easy to get caught in a victim mindset and feel like life's happening to us. But we don't have any power in that perception or that experience. Almost the cost of creative liberty comes with the honor of accountability in our own life. I think that it can be tricky at moments where we feel we've made mistakes or we're not happy with what we feel when we look around or something like that. But it's hard, if not impossible, for me to imagine getting out of those situations while staying in that state of mind. The
Oh my
monster just
gosh,
grows.
right?
Yeah.
It's so true. One thing I had this client, and I've had several clients like this. One of the things that I have learned to share with them is it's not about just getting the coffee. It's about saying you want the cookie that's not the damaged, dented cookie.
You want the whole cookie.
You take the one you want. And when I say this to them, you know you want whatever it is that's in the case if you let yourself have it, and you don't want the beat up, crappy one. And you don't have to say that, but you can say, could I have the other one, please? And when
Oh
I
man.
said this to this one client, she had all these kids, and it was so amazing to me. And she busted up laughing and she said, how do you know that about me? That I would just always take the leftover, the pieces, or whatever the one that nobody else wanted. And her assignment that week, when we were working on rebuilding her self esteem and connecting her back, was for her to just choose the simplest thing of what she truly wanted.
Hmm.
It made such an impact in her life to begin to choose. No, I don't want that kind of coffee this morning. I'd rather have this tea. I'd rather have this mug. I'm going to sleep in those pajamas, those sheets. And we laid it out for her. But it was the act of simply prioritizing herself
Yeah.
that began to change her life in such a way that she could actually start to feel good again.
Wow.
When we're so lost and caught up in get it done now, be here now, do this now, meet this deadline, be it whatever it is, handle this situation. If we can just take those tiny baby steps and then when you're ready, start to acknowledge things with gratitude. That is something that I think is meaningful in being kind to yourself because gratitude draws in more and more appreciation for more of what you want. In being kind to yourself, it's a tricky business, especially when we are so far removed from it. And the definitions of being kind to yourself are often skewed because, again, it's not about going and getting the coffee necessarily. That's part of it. It's about that you got to sit down, catch your breath, and just be.
Totally.
And even let yourself evaluate what are realistic expectations for yourself, to begin to take that moment when you do have the coffee to reflect on your day, acknowledge your efforts. Any of these things are steps towards self kindness that don't cost you anything, can bring up your awareness and start to help you feel good, feel happy, and step onto that path with ease. Not to get super heavy, but definitely to throw them in there. The biggest thing about being kind to yourself is that it refills your tank.
Oh man, and as you're describing this, I keep thinking back to the idea of malice and frustration, the way sometimes it slips out when we're hurting because of the different, spots in our pain bodies that are getting triggered or pressed in certain experiences. But I was sitting here thinking like, wow, how many of those are of my own doing? Like how many of my sensitivities are my own creation that I'm reacting to and holding on to? Where I sit with
Knowing
that.
again that you accepted that
Yeah,
with who you were and what you understood at that time, and that that is absolutely okay.
back to the kindness. Basic, yeah, totally.
Exactly. And then going, I did as much as I could there for what I had, for what I knew. One of the major things that we have to draw back to ourselves is we're looking through a keyhole here.
Hmm.
I don't care how smart somebody is. I don't care how accomplished. I don't care how wealthy, educated, intelligent, well-traveled. I don't care how many languages you speak. As you get to know me, you're going to know I've been all over the world, and Gabe has too. We've traveled between the two of us. We've covered the planet almost completely. I will definitely tell you, everybody is looking through a keyhole.
Yeah,
Therein lies your ability to say, for as much as I could see through that keyhole, I did the best I could with what I had, who I am, and who I was. And when you know better, you do better.
that's true. The ability to reflect and integrate that, I think, easily overlooked. It's good to have these moments to think about and talk about it.
Charlie Mackesy in the book goes on, the mole says, We often wait for kindness, but being kind to yourself can start now.
Hmm.
That is exactly what we're talking about. That when you begin showing yourself kindness in these ways, you also, the other thing you're doing is you're showing others how they can treat you. If you're a parent, you're setting the example for your kids and you're showing them how they should be treated. That's one of the biggest things that I've learned as a parent. My example, my kid didn't hear what I said necessarily, but she definitely heard my example. She saw, witnessed, experienced, embodied, and imprinted my example onto her life. Put this idea out there of how can you show yourself kindness? How can you begin to start to have kindness in your life and towards yourself so that you can start reflecting that outwards? You can fill up your tank and you can just remember. Goes on to say, often the hardest person to forgive is yourself. This is such a huge thing to me in the sense of because I've talked about this with a lot of different people, and forgiveness was something that was really foreign to me. My attitude used to be not so great. I used to have this attitude of what's forgiveness? I'm all about karma and good luck with your karma. Speaking of the fox, as you get to know me, you'll know I have different skills and abilities, and we all do. One of the things that I do is I can go into the Akashic records. I can go into the places where our souls reside. It's part of who I am. I believe that anyone can do this. It's just a matter of getting to that space. I actually went into the Akashic records because I wanted to know what forgiveness was because I just couldn't get my mind around it. And this goes way back for me, and I won't share it all here, but I'll say this. Forgiveness is not the definition of what has been so much given to us through the way we've been socialized. And I'm just going to leave it at that. What I was shown, this different definition of divine forgiveness, which is about letting go. The reason it's about letting go is so that you can stop feeding energy to something or someone that is only tethering you to more of what you don't want. To take back that energy that you have given to that, use that power that is yours to freely reclaim your life and your desires, which is how you free yourself.
I can't think of a kinder gift to give ourselves than to take that space back, let go.
It,
That's really
it
powerful.
Gabe and I will go into forgiveness all throughout at different times. That's sort of the foundation of where we are with forgiveness. We do have a forgiveness subliminal that's created, and we'll put that in the shop for people to have and to use and to benefit. But I can tell you that anyone that's used this forgiveness subliminal, what's amazing is they always tell me how they end up letting go, but then they come back and they're like, I still can't forgive this person. And it makes me smile because it's the act of wanting to let go that tells me that now it's just a matter of letting that happen.
That process is slow because the attachments happen in the mind and forgiveness is a feeling in the heart. And it's so easy
Yes.
to keep jumping back up to check it and I don't know, analyze the situation instead of like feeling the surrender and opening that comes with the
Uh,
spaciousness, the peace.
I seriously, I think I had the hardest head when it came to forgiveness. I really did. That was a huge one for me to gain understanding into. I have empathy and compassion. It's something that I work on. It's simply about letting go so you can free yourself. That's what it is. It's not saying what anybody did to you or whatever happened was okay necessarily. It's about knowing that in forgiving yourself, again, it's remembering you were looking through the keyhole with who you were and what you had at the time.
Hmm.
So it starts with compassion. We'll definitely address this in a way that is far more beneficial and tangible in future. Touching on it here, it just sort of gives an
Oh yeah.
introduction.
Could dive into a whole book on this. I'm sure we
Yeah,
will.
we will. I have one
Yeah.
in mind. You know me. It has to actually work. It has to have results. It has to actually give us what we need. Anyway, the boy goes on. He says, "Sometimes I feel lost." The mole says, "Me too, but we love you. Love brings you home."
Mm.
I was thinking about feeling lost. This puts another piece into the puzzle for us. When you're feeling lost, is the solution to remember that you're loved always, no matter what? And is it when people say, "This feels like home to me," what they're really saying is, "This feels like I'm loved here"?
Yes. That part of the story makes me think too, like when we're not brave enough to be vulnerable about how we're feeling lonely or scared or anxious, we're not even presenting our real self that needs the loving to those around us for the opportunity to be loved. So it's almost like we're cutting ourselves off from that experience as like a coping mechanism or a habit of some kind. Because that's I think what the heart wants and needs is to be reminded that it's okay to feel and that we're capable of recovery as so long as we allow and give permission for our emotions to be what they are. Like that compass gets all jumbled and hard to read when we start feeling shame about the truth.
Because he goes on to say, "I think everyone is just trying to get home."
Hmm.
And I think home is love.
Yeah, I agree.
That's where we leave you today with our thoughts and with the book, and we'll pick everything back up again tomorrow. Is there anything else you want to add, Gabe?
I'm excited to see what happens next.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening.
Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you tomorrow.